Good evening, truth seekers, hopefully, and others who are here to listen to a story about Genesis continued. We started with chapters 1 through 3. It took a little longer than I expected. Tonight, we're proposing that we might go through chapters 4 through 7. This is after the fall, which is what they taught, what is after Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge and decided, and got mortality. So they didn't die right away, though. First, they decided to start having sex with each other and having children, which they wouldn't have done otherwise, based on the Garden of Eden story. So we're going to try to continue with the story and see where it leads us. So, we'll just go with the flow. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks, everybody who's watching it after the fact. These are meant to be able to be found anytime by any seeker seeking to know more who stumbles across this thing. So if you are ready, then I'll just go ahead. We finished up, we told, we went over the days of creation, the chapters 1 through 3 in the Bible, the creation story, which is in chapter 1, and then the Garden of Eden story in the fall, which is chapters 2 and 3. We talked about the contradictions between the different texts, which is that in chapter 1, it says that men and women were created from the beginning, men and women together, and they were to be fruitful and multiply. But the Garden of Eden story says we were actually supposed to never have sex, basically, pretty much. I mean, I certainly think that's the implication, that we were just meant to, Adam and Eve were meant to live forever, and therefore not need to reproduce and just dominate the earth forever. Pretty much, that was their dominion. That was what God gave them. God threatened them with mortal punishment. We figured that would work. He was like, okay, don't eat the apple because you'll die. And they ate it anyway. So that's when we learned, early on in the books, that people don't care, or people are going to do things anyway. It doesn't matter what you threaten them with. There's only so much you can do to control human behavior, and even God had to find that out the hard way, I guess you could say, which is that these humans, which had free will, and as long as they do free will is really funny. As long as you do what God wants you to do, you can have free will. Basically, that was the rules. And that continues to be the rules. You have free will unless you do something that God doesn't like, and then you'll surely die or be tortured or something like that. So they were given free will anyway, and they ended up doing something against God's will. And then they got mortality, and they got horny, I guess, because the programming, the biological programming kicked in, which is that if you're going to die, you have to reproduce. If you're not going to die, you don't have to reproduce. So there would be no biological urge to do that dirty thing that you're thinking about. So depending on which story you believe, chapter 1 or chapter 2, we were either put here to be like animals, kind of pretty much like everybody else on this planet, and desire to reproduce because we're going to die. That's the only way we continue surviving as a species. Or that we were made to be basically desireless. That's what God prefers. Desireless and obedient. So that was Adam and Eve until they ate the apple and learned the difference between good and evil. And then they got mortality. They still lived like almost 1,000 years. So it wasn't like they died right away. And the snake did lie to them. The snake lied and said that they would not die, but they were going to die. And so then they ate of the apple. Childbirth is going to be painful. Snakes are the worst things on earth, according to God. And that's where we're at. Okay, got it. So we're going to continue with the fall and its aftermath. There's something in here that's just actually, it's such a contradiction. It's I'm looking at an outline, a very detailed outline of the story, but I've read the real story, and it's true. In the story, there's a real problem with where Enoch came from. Actually, where Enoch came from, and he was really holy. So, did he come from Cain or did he come from Seth? And Cain wasn't good. So after they ate the apple, they wanted to have sex with each other. So they did, and they started to bear children. And the first child is Abel, who Eve. I'm sorry. Hold on, let me make sure I have it right. The first child is Cain. I'm sorry, and then Abel. So Cain is born first, and Eve said, "I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord." And then Abel was born. Cain is a farmer, and Abel is a shepherd. And they say that Abel's flock pleases God. Abel's flock of sheep pleases God, but the fruit does not, for some reason. So there are favored people in the Bible for a reason, because you're just meant to know clearly where the holy lineage comes from, the lineage that's closer to God. That's, good people and stuff. So you know that Cain isn't good people. Well, I haven't even told you why, but I'm sure you've heard the story before once in a while. Cain killed his brother. He got mad. He got in a fight with him in the field or something. Just killed him straight up. So that's the first thing. I mean, God created this universe. God created Earth. God created everything on it, and men to be in his image. And he thought that was, and then he threatened it with mortal danger if they did the wrong thing. They did the wrong thing anyway. And then they just right away, the offspring of these holy people, Adam and Eve, Cain just kills his brother, totally kills him. So God warns Cain, "Why are you angry? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door." Cain murders Abel. God asks, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground." And then Cain was cursed. God said, "You are cursed from the ground, a fugitive and a wanderer," unquote. So although he was marked for protection, so he was marked, he was given the mark so that nobody would kill him, because he was still related to God the Father, the creator. So they did mark him with something. You got to figure out where other humans came from that didn't descend directly from Adam and Eve, because it kind of ends up that there seems like there are other lines. Like there are other humans that end up on the earth that we don't know descended from the original line. So I don't know where they came from, but you'll have to figure that out. But here in chapter 4, it says Cain had Enoch. It says Cain had Enoch in the 4th chapter of Genesis. It says Cain had Enoch. And of course, Enoch ended up having Noah, and and Enoch went to heaven because he was so good and became Metatron, the holy scribe. So it would be weird if Enoch came from from Cain. But that's what it says in the 4th chapter. Okay. And then, still in the 4th chapter, Adam knew Eve again, and they had another son, because, quote, "God has appointed for me another offspring instead of Abel, for Cain killed him." So, unquote. So Seth was basically born to replace Abel, who was good, as far as anybody knew. He didn't kill anybody. And so Cain was not good. So they had another son, Seth. Then you got to figure out where Enoch came from, because in chapter 5, Seth is the line that Enoch came from. And I tend to think that that's probably what it's meant to be. So they give the ages of everybody in this chapter, chapter 5, genealogy from Adam to Noah. So this is the pre-flood genealogy. So we've done some pre-flood stories. Enoch, very detailed pre-flood, talks about Enoch, talks about Noah, talks about their relatives, people in their line, Methuselah. I can't explain it. I don't know how you print a book like this. Chapter 4 says Enoch was Cain's son. Chapter 5 says Enoch was in Seth's line after another 4 generations after Seth. And then they talk about how many years people lived. If you believe in the extraterrestrial stuff, well, makes sense. If we're Pleiadians or Elohim, which we are for sure. Elohim, whatever you can see that to be. We lived a long time originally, like our cosmic selves may have lived too. So, and people didn't have children until they were like over 100 years old. So the book of generations of Adam say that it says when Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness after his image and named him Seth. So Seth is supposed to be the good one. So I guess you just write off the fact that they said Enoch was born to Cain. Just doesn't make sense. Seth lived 912 years. Enosh came after Seth. Kenan after Enosh. Mahalalel after Kenan. Jared after Mahalalel. And then Enoch. And then 3 more generations to Noah. So, and then Noah to Shem. We're going to go over Shem's genealogy later. They also go over that in detail. So the genealogy of the good people, the people who survived the flood, comes directly from Seth. Everybody else is dead now after the flood. The flood killed everything except for the line of Seth, not Cain. Doesn't make sense. So they fucked up. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Editor's note. This is impossible. And it screws up the timeline too, especially considering people live 1,000 years. So, Diligent Escape say there's a Methuselah, Lamech, and an Enoch in both lines. Yeah, that's what it says. But based on the genealogy of Shem, who's the favored son of Noah, leading to the chosen people, seems to me that it's probably from Seth. So I think it's pretty safe to say that the story is supposed to be that it's from the good son. And then, okay, so we might go through this a lot faster because these chapters are packed with less information. So that's excellent. We're going to make progress. So it's mostly a story of all of the line from Adam to Seth to everybody else, to Enoch, to the flood, to Noah, to the flood. And Enoch already knew about the flood. They knew about it before Noah. Noah wasn't the first one to hear about it. They told Enoch in advance before taking him to heaven in a spaceship or something, Lamech, Methuselah. Methuselah, people say old as Methuselah is like a saying because he lived the longest of anybody in the Bible, 969 years. And then actually Methuselah lived the longest and died the year of the flood. He died actually the year of the flood when Noah was 600, I think. I think the flood happened when Noah was 600. So they go over all the years here. You can muse over, or you can think about, how they lived so many years, whether that was possible. They say Noah, they say like they do about a lot of these characters that they had other sons and daughters who are unnamed in the books. So thanks, Lisa June Williams. All we have is this moment. Nothing else exists. That's how time exists on upper planes. to them, from what people say, all at once. It happens all at the same time. Yeah. Which so that's true. But on this plane, obviously, it's different. We perceive it differently. We actually think it's that time exists because it does here. So we're unique. We get that uniqueness of this reality, the perception that time passes. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful creation. Okay, so that's the story. I think that's all that's important from that chapter. So we're getting to the flood and the renewal, which we'll have to back up with threads from Enoch because it doesn't talk about it in depth. So Genesis, we're doing chapters Genesis 6 through 9. Speaking of the flood, corruption spreads, quote from the Bible. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord saw that wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. I mean, it was really bad. Apparently, it was really bad. This Genesis mentions the sons of God, who they don't refer to as what else are they referred to? Oh, fallen angels or whatever. So it's not as clear. The sons of God, though, are made clear in Enoch, are the they're the angels of God. They're God's angels. Yeah, it's very straightforward. I'm sorry. Yeah, they're God's angels. Some of whom, part of the collective that is that group, the Elohim. So it's part of the Elohim, basically, which is one and many at the same time. But the angels, they're not the creator. Angels, some of them came down. We talked about it in Enoch. We'll just go over it again. They came down to share knowledge and have sex with women. It's all men up there. It's all men, angels and stuff. So they thought women were beautiful. They decided to come down and have sex with them. They all cursed each other so that they would be stuck here on earth, at least, for the time they decided to be there. The problem was when they bore children with the women, the hybrids weren't a good outcome. So which if you think about it, like, I always thought the lion tiger being bigger than both was weird. I didn't think that was real, but apparently when you combine a lion and tiger, a liger, I guess they exist, is bigger than both of them. I mean, it's huge. So I guess you can imagine then how a hybrid could turn out wrong. Instead of turning out like an angel, like God, it turned out like a freak, like a Frankenstein or something, giant and evil. Unfortunately, for their plans. So I'm sure they didn't know that going in. And then they shared some knowledge, which God doesn't like either. Secret knowledge that God controls. He doesn't like it when people share that. So these rebellious angels decided to share knowledge also, which included advanced metallurgy, makeup, cosmetics, spells. Spells were a real problem. Sorcery, they taught human sorcery, and then potions and herbs and so forth. So the fallen angels, which is not fleshed out in this story, but is very clear in Enoch, came down, cursed each other, yada, 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 shared a lot of information. And that according to God, okay, this is, it's not clear in Genesis. According to God, the angels were at fault, not the humans. So here it sounds kind of like the humans are being blamed for being corrupted and being evil all the time. But actually in Enoch, the angels get pretty much all the blame. And one angel, the Azazel, is meant to get actually all the blame. That's what it says. One of the fallen angels is meant to get all of the blame and be trapped in a spiky pit forever until Judgment Day, which is coming soon. Soon being a relative term. So that's why God decided to do the flood. Once again, in Enoch, it seems that he is not blaming the humans, but blaming the angels, and kind of saying that the information was the problem. So it's actually, I think it's fair to debate whether God was fair to the angels who, are still good people. I mean, they come from the right place. They're really nice. They're trying to do the right thing. It's not like they were bad. They loved humans. They had no idea their children would be freaks, evil freaks. They had no idea. And then they just wanted to share information, which they didn't see a problem with. Some of the angels disagree with God about that, or from early on. So they rebelled, and God had a problem with that, even though they come from the same source, which is good. They're good, but they rebelled. God blamed them and decided to kill everything except for the elect, Noah, and so forth. So then, okay, here we go. Corruption spread. God said that men are living too long, and that his days shall be at 120 years. I'm sorry. It's actually clarified here, which is thankful. His days shall be 120 years means that's all the time that's left. I apologize. The Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. I guess he gives the countdown. God does, which to the flood. 120 years from when the Bible, who knows when from, but Noah was chosen. Once again, Enoch fleshes this out. Noah had the appearance of an angel, and actually so much so that his father didn't understand what was wrong with his son because he was white hair, pale skin, rosy features, eyes like the sun, and apparently looked just like these sons of God. And he was able to speak with God, which is a unique talent. Most people don't have that. So Noah was chosen from the bloodline of Enoch. Enoch, who's an angel now, officially. He's called Metatron, I guess, but apparently has like 1,000 eyes, and he's a scribe. He just writes everything down. Enoch was really good, walked with God. Noah, really good, not walked with God. Noah was chosen. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. The Lord gave Noah precise instructions, including the dimensions of the ark, how many floors it had to have. I mean, he said it had to be 3 stories. I think in the end, it's not even just 2 beasts it's 7 couples of animals. So it is impossible. The story obviously isn't true. It can't be, but it might be in a different kind of way, beyond the 3D matrix or the simulation. It obviously can't be. Why did I say that? Why did I say it can't be true? Because I actually don't know why I said that. Well, for one thing, Cain and Abel automatically knew how to do things civilization didn't learn for a long time. Farming and shepherding. They knew that. The first humans knew that. So they were given some talents that humans didn't have in advance. Other human societies said godlike things, godlike humans or gods themselves, are the ones that told them how to farm and stuff. So that's why I say it can't be true, but based on what we have physically in 3D on Earth, can't be true because we were hunter-gatherers. There was no such time in the Bible of hunter-gatherers. Did not exist. Man knew how to farm. Man knew how to keep animals. Domesticated animals. Came out right away. Livestock. God created livestock. That's what it says. You know what I mean? They weren't even wild animals at the beginning. So yeah, it can't be true. That's what I mean, I guess. But it is true somehow, they say. So just have to think, you have to figure out how. They say as above, so below. So maybe it's true above. You know what I mean? That's all I can figure. It's very detailed genealogy, very important to these people, which helps to understand why Jewish people are obsessed with, well, in a way, obsessed with it, and the fact that it's very, very difficult to be Jewish if your mother is not Jewish, and if you convert, it's not like people who convert aren't really, you know what I mean? People don't really consider them to be part of the tribe, pretty much. Like it's a bloodline. In the case of that religion, which makes sense, this is the religion that the Bible is for, the Jewish people. So for other people, it could be different. So he built the ark. You guys know the story. He was warned that they were going to destroy the earth because of the iniquity of man and the angels. Noah built the ark, got in it, the rain came, right? It came just like God said it was going to. And Noah and his bloodline survived. So the rest of evil the rest of Genesis, a lot of it goes over that bloodline. So we'll go over that. And once again, very confusing at the beginning, whether the holy line is from Cain. You know, it's very strange. I have no idea why that's in the Bible. You would think they'd fix it or something. You know, it's not impossible. Oh wow, that's cool. Thanks, Mimsy Schwimsy. I wish I could offer you more with that membership. Maybe I'll add more features. But that's very nice of you. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. You're really nice. So but Noah went on with 3 sons and their wives who are unnamed: Shem, Japheth. It's Japheth, right? And Ham. Shem. Hold on one sec. Japheth. Yeah, I got it. Okay. Japheth, Ham, and Shem. Okay. And there's a story that is told that's meant to illustrate the character of the 3 sons, and says that Ham, it's kind of a strange story. Ham saw Noah Noah got drunk, I guess, on the ark or something. Noah got drunk and was naked in his bed, passed out. Ham saw it, thought it was spicy or something. You know, you have to figure out. Ham saw it and told the other guys about it. Like, oh, this is crazy. You got to see this. Basically like that. You got to see this. Dad's naked. It's crazy. He's passed out drunk. LOL. And then Shem and Japheth are very nice sons, and they don't want to look at it. So they walk in backwards with a sheet held over. They describe it. Backward with a sheet held over their shoulders like this. They walk back, and then they cover their dad, and he is no longer naked. And they didn't look at him naked. That story is meant to make clear, perhaps that Ham's line is cursed. Perhaps, you can definitely think about that. Or at least that Ham's line is not as good. And that's not where the Israel came from. So Japheth, it says, was the line of Magog, Gomer and Magog, which is Europe. Ham, once again, the son that was not perfect, was apparently Cush, Egypt, and Canaan, Africa, and the Middle East. And so also Ethiopia, I think, from Ham. And then Shem, the good one, was given dominion over Canaan, basically, which including Israel. So he was the line, and that's why they say anti-Semite, or I guess it came from anti-Shem, like Shemite, that the people of that region between the rivers came from Shem. So I kind of jumped ahead, but I think, yeah, that's pretty much where we are to the genealogy. So, and actually it says Ham, it cursed Canaan. Canaan was Ham's son, I believe, but it's also the name for the land that includes Israel, Jordan, I believe perhaps Syria. In Enoch, Shem is given dominion over Ham's son Canaan, who is cursed. That's my best reading of it. But they did say that Shem would have dominion over Canaan, who is a person who would be a slave, for one thing, but then also that the land of Canaan included Israel. So once again, the bloodlines, which Shem's line, the basically the culmination of it, the important part of Shem's line is that it's clear with men. The line is followed through the father, which is different now from how Judaism is. So the line is followed through the father, and they just want to make clear that the line goes straight to Abram, who is called Abram, whose name changes to Abraham. So in as much as Abraham is the father of all the religions and everything, he came from Noah's line. So this is where it must not be correct, because there are other people around pretty much already, and they would all be from Noah's line. They would have to be. But it kind of, you get the feeling that, it's supposed to be clear that there's only one really good bloodline. It's supposed to be clear. And even for Jesus Christ, who wasn't even human, didn't even have a father, they wanted to make clear that his bloodline was perfect. That it went back to Abraham, which went back to Noah, which goes back to Adam, which goes back to God. But if there was a flood and there was only one person left, then everybody came from Noah or his sons. And seems like there are too many people for that, right? So anyway, that's the official, once again, the official story. The important bloodline goes down to Abram. So I think now we're going to start about, what the patriarchal history. Let's see how long we've gone. Oh, perfect. 33 minutes. That's very good. Okay, good. We're getting through it very quickly. So the first 3 chapters took a very long time. Then there's the stories of the covenant being made after the flood. So the flood happens. I didn't talk about it much. The flood, it rains for 40 days and 40 nights. The flood lasts for 150 days. At the end, Noah does a few tests with birds, a raven and a dove, who he sends out. And if they come back, he figures there's no land for him to land on. Otherwise, they wouldn't even come back, I guess. That's what he thinks. And eventually, I think one of them might come back with a something from the earth. I think that's the story. I don't have it in my summary, but I think one of the birds comes back with something earthly, and then they know that the waters have receded. So that's the end of it. Then there was a covenant made with God. Where Noah says, quote, I have set my bow. Well, I'm not sure who says it. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant. So there's a covenant made with God again. They built an altar, and that's the new covenant. Noah started to have kids. We already kind of got into that. They built the Tower of Babel, or Babel, however you want to say it, was built around the same time, around after the flood. Quote, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, unquote. And quote, and the Lord said, behold, they are one people. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, unquote. So this is something the Lord does that isn't particularly, which really isn't nice to humanity. It's not, encouraging us to come together as one. In fact, it's encouraging us to be divided, which is fine. It may be part of the plan. So we all spoke the same language originally, and then the Lord wanted everybody to be confused. Maybe it makes things easier for the control structure. So confuse the languages. Everybody went their own way. The nations were created. Basically, people were separated. People were different because of their languages. All right. So then you get into the patriarchal history, which talks about Abraham and his descendants. The Lord commanded Abraham to go from where he was to the land that God was going to show him. And that would be the land of Canaan. And Lot is also introduced as a brother, I believe, of Abram, who's still Abram, then becomes Abraham for some reason. Lot is still related to Abram. They're there on the land. They have a story about sharing the land together by having it divided. I'll see if we get into that. So there was a covenant made with Abram, which becomes really sticky, which is that he's going to have a lot of descendants, Abram. There's a covenant made with God that Abram is going to have a lot of descendants and they're going to populate the earth, that there will be as many of them as there are stars in heaven. This ends up being a problem because they don't have, Sarah seems to be barren. His wife, Sarah, who later turns out to be his sister, although her name started as Sarai and then became Sarah, Sarai, to Sarah with an H. Abram's name changed from Abram, Abram, to Abraham. Oh, man. Then the circumcision thing, which God commanded for some reason. As you can't be close to God if you don't get circumcised. It doesn't have to be on the 8th day. That's preferred. But you certainly get it done as an adult if you'd like to be close to God and you'd like to not go to hell. You can get circumcised. You have to. It seems to imply that it's something with bearing lots of children because he's like, oh, if you get circumcised, you're going to have a lot of kids. So it's very interesting to speculate on why God, who created man in his image to be perfect, like God's got an elephant trunk, right? That's what you have to assume. There's nothing wrong with that. But for some reason, it's a problem with humans. Very strange. Very strange for God to say about his creation, what he fuck up, added some extra skin when he didn't mean to or something. It doesn't make any sense at all that we need to be mutilated to be close to God. But that's what God said. So that's the law as far as we know. So I'm circumcised. Fortunately, I'm Catholic, but they did it in America. It could be for cleanliness. A lot of laws in the Bible are about hygiene. So might not have anything to do with God. That area apparently that's they even taught us in high school. They're like, oh yeah, if you have one of those, you really need to clean up in there because you can get bacteria and all this stuff. They're like, oh yeah, having a foreskin is dangerous. That's what they taught us. That's what they taught me in high school. I was born in 1978. They schmegma. Have you ever heard of that? Apparently, it builds up under your There's like foreskin like they were talking shit about foreskin, like foreskin propaganda, I guess you could say. Say, oh yeah, if you have one of those, like it gets really dirty and nasty. Like you don't want that. That's what they taught us. But that's weird, considering, like, you know, what do you like? It seems like it would be an affront to God. It seems that way. Mutilating yourself. Everything else you do to your body is an affront to God. I mean, if you're Jewish, you're not supposed to get tattoos or anything, and you're supposed to be buried all together, your whole body and everything. Nothing's supposed to be missing, all that stuff. But God's like, oh yeah, you got to get rid of the foreskin. Don't know. No idea, but really important. So yeah, I don't know I don't know. Christians do it too because it's the same God. It doesn't happen as much in Europe, it seems like, but in America, we are, what do you say? Cut. So, no clue why. Super important, though, obviously. Super, super important. Part of the covenant, Then you're going to have lots of kids if you're circumcised. Okay. Okay. Visitors come to talk to Abraham. Okay. Visitors who are like holy visitors. They're depicted as human, but they're delivering a message, it seems like, from the Lord, which is that Abraham, he's 99 years old. And this goes along with Sodom and Gomorrah. It's around the same time. So Sodom and Gomorrah have a problem. Like everybody's evil there, apparently. Although Abraham makes a deal with God. I know we'll make sure to cover everything. So God says he's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, where Lot has gone. And Abraham pleads with him. And it's this negotiation that goes on for a page where Abraham says, if there are 50 good people, God, in Sodom and Gomorrah, will you spare it for the good people? God's like, yeah, I'll do that. And then Abraham's like, hey, God, I know I say a lot and stuff, but I'm a good guy. What if it was 45 people? But will you still save it? God's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll do that. And then I'm serious is how it goes. Then Abraham's like, God, I know I'm just a human and stuff, but seriously, if there's 40 people, will you spare the city? And God's like, yeah, no problem. 40 people, no big deal. And then he keeps doing it. I mean, down to 10. Every 5. It's in the book. He negotiates every 5. So he gets it down to 10, where God says if there's 10 good people in Sodom and Gomorrah, he'll spare it. Apparently there's not. Apparently the only good people, and that's because they're from the Holy Line, is Lot. Lot, he's not like an exceptional character in the Bible or anything, but he's okay. As long as you follow God's will, that's what he wants, pretty much. If you do what he says, that's it. If you don't do what he says, he'll kill you or torture you, or it doesn't even matter. He doesn't care what happens to you. But if you do what he says, it's okay. And he told Lot to leave. He told Lot and his family to leave because he was going to destroy it, rain down fire and brimstone. And Lot obeyed. He left. He said, oh, I don't want to go to the mountains. God wanted him to go to the mountains. He negotiated. He's like, no, I don't want to go to the mountains. They'll kill me. I'll go to this city over here. And it's a small town. It's called, the Hebrew word for it means little. It's a little town he goes to. Lot and stuff. He says, don't look over your shoulder. Well, you'll turn to salt. Don't look back. So walk away. Don't look back. You'll turn to salt. And then his dumb wife, I don't know how else to say it. She looks back, I think it exemplifies. It's like do your all they had to do is do what they were told. That's it. That's it. It was literally that easy. And she turned into a pillar of salt because she disobeyed. And what did she get out of it? Wasn't worth. I would propose it wasn't worth it. That's all. I have no idea, but it seems stupid. Stupid. It seems like God wants you to do what He says. If you can hear Him, or like if you can tell what He's saying, He definitely wants you to obey. Obey. That's the most important thing to Him. And that's also made very clear in the story because of Isaac. So anyway, these visitors come around this time of Lot. So there's a few prophecies that come at the same time, which is the prophecy that Sodom and Gomorrah are going to be destroyed for their iniquity, and Abraham, who's 99, and his wife, who's also super old, has gone through menopause, was barren in the first place and couldn't have children. By the way, Abraham did have a child with his slave, which ends up getting a different line, which is also important. I didn't go over it right now, but he did have another bloodline branch off through Hagar and Ishmael. So Ishmael was his son through Hagar. But that pissed off his wife, Sarah. Sarah was really mad about it. She was like bitter for sure. She was like, oh my God, like I hate this woman, now that she's having sex with you. And wanted her out of the house and stuff, got rid of her, which I understand makes sense. Kind of weird in the first place. So the angels, or I'm sorry, the people who are bringing God's word, 3 of them, came and said, no, like, I'm serious. No, Abraham's like, you're joking. Pretty much. He's like, you're wrong. Pretty much you're wrong about having a child. Isaac, which would be where all his kids would come from, because he had no offspring. He had no official offspring so far, and God promised him as many kids as there are stars, as many in his bloodline at least. So far, he hadn't had any officially, through his wife and stuff. So both of them were like, bullshit. There's no way. Like, we're 100 years old. We're not having kids. And God says, oh yeah, I'll see you in a year. And then we'll talk about it. And you'll have a kid named Isaac. And it happened. So it happened the way God said it. Somehow it was miraculous. So God told them that they were going to have Isaac, who is super important, who they had as prophesied. Then it gets really crazy. And then you got to ask what God really wants. Then after having this son, where it was prophesied by God Himself that He would have lots of kids through His son Isaac, before His son is of the age where he can have children at all, to fulfill that prophecy, the Lord says, you know what? Kill it. Like, you're going to go take your son, take him to this place and kill him for me. Okay. And Abraham's like, sure. Yeah, I get it. No problem. And he packs his stuff, grabs his son, says, okay, we're going out here. We're going to sacrifice something. He lies to him, actually. Says that we're going to sacrifice something. We're going to sacrifice a goat or a sheep. And Isaac's not stupid. He's like, where's the sheep, Dad? And he's like, God will take care of that when we get there. That's what he says to Isaac. Isaac's like, Dad, what are we doing? He's like, oh yeah, we're going to sacrifice something just like God likes. And he's like, oh, okay. What are we going to sacrifice? A sheep or a goat. Isaac looks around. It's like, I don't see any goats, Dad. So he's the sacrifice, basically. This seems rather cruel to a modern audience, which is that God would ask for sacrifice. But that's how gods were back in the day. Before Jesus, where He was the last sacrifice, pretty much. But before Jesus, the gods demanded sacrifice, even the original creator God. And there still is sacrifice demanded. It's just different. We don't do the blood sacrifice anymore because our sensibilities have changed. but there is sacrifice demanded for iniquities and going against God's will. So, what we are meant to read from it is that Abraham is good. Like, it's good to obey God without question. Okay. That's what God prefers. It's very clear. Complete obedience. And that means if he asks you to do something that's insane, like that you don't understand, if you want to be good, you have to do it. If you know God told you to do it, you have no excuse. Like, you have to. Otherwise, very bad punishment. So it's exemplified in kind of a messed up way, once again, for modern sensibilities. You'd be like, what God would do that? But God was testing him. And ultimately, this thing is a test for self-improvement for all of us. And it was a test. So God tested Abraham in what you could consider a very cruel way. But Abraham obeyed, and God spared Isaac. Okay, so Abraham was going to do it for sure because God said so, and Abraham walks with God. Abraham was going to do it at the last second. There's intervention, and then a goat appears, and they're able to sacrifice a goat. So actually, in the end, he was kind of telling the truth. He's like, God will provide the goat. Well, in the end, there was like a goat there. All of a sudden. So that's the story of God asking Abraham to sacrifice. But also, if you think about it, Abraham was promised by God that he would have a long line of descendants. So if God asked him to do something, like, he can't think that it would contradict something God said before. So he could have thought, okay, well, I'll just do this and God will take care of it. I guess that's what you're supposed to think. That's what they say in the Bible, is that you just do it without question. This is where incest, for the first time, becomes an issue right here in chapters 20 to 25, where Abraham is suddenly ashamed. He goes to a place and he has to confess in a way that seems like he's ashamed of it or he won't be accepted. He has to confess that his wife is his sister, directly from his father, a half sister, but still directly from his father's line. So, which would never be a problem because obviously it's all incest since Noah. So that's where you start to think, okay, well, it seems to be implied that there must have been other bloodlines if incest suddenly became a problem, because incest can't be a problem if we're all related, if we're all totally related, all of us since the beginning. So it's kind of like maybe a point, maybe it's meant to indicate that, the laws or something changed and that suddenly incest, which we know is bad for the sustenance, because of the genetic defects we know now. Apparently it became a problem cosmically too, where Abraham felt like he had to apologize for being married to a sister. They end up saying, no, it's cool. You're a good guy. It's okay. But it's to show that the people that descended from Abraham were pure bloods, Elohim, descendants of Elohim, pretty much, from Noah, and they were brother and sister. So once again, it shows that the bloodline is a pure Elohim bloodline, pretty much, however you want to look at it. So, but interesting that incest suddenly seems to have become taboo. So there we are. I'll wrap it up there. It's pretty good. About an hour. It's on a Saturday night. Weird time to be thinking about stuff like this. So thanks for being here. It's kind of cool. We will continue as directed to do more, but we'll finish Genesis and we'll see where things go from there. And we'll report on other things as we feel like it. So thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We'll be really happy to read your comments. If you'd like to donate, you can go to Cash App, $LTV411, or buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just cool. See what you think of the information. Give me your feedback, and we'll go from there. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. For now, that's what it is.